The Chicago White Sox lost 121 games in 2024. Not 100, not 110, 121 out of 162. That's the worst record in modern MLB history. And they've had 3 straight seasons of over 100 losses, to the point where everybody thought this franchise was dead. Everybody thought the White Sox were dead in the water, and you would never see this organization rise up again to be a playoff contending team. But now they're 2 games over 500, 1 month into the 2026 season, tied for second place in their division, and are on pace for what would be the greatest single-season turnaround in the history of Major League Baseball. The difference wasn't some massive $300 million budget. It wasn't a new owner. It wasn't making some magic trade deadline move last season. It was one guy from Japan who brought something this organization hasn't had in years: a standard. And if you stick around to the end of this video, I'm going to break down exactly what that standard is and why it applies to every single team that you'll ever be on, whether that's a sport, at work, in the military, or even in your own family. Because this isn't just a baseball story, folks. This is a leadership culture story. Let me set the scene for you, because I don't think people really understand how bad this was. 41 wins and 121 losses. That's a .253 win percentage. It's not just bad, folks. That's historically, catastrophically, irredeemably bad. The 5th worst win percentage in the modern era, which goes all the way back to 1901. And like I mentioned, it wasn't just one bad season. They had 3 straight seasons of losing triple-digit games. Now think about that. That's 3 years of showing up to the ballpark knowing that you're probably going to lose. 3 years of guys going through the motions. 3 years of a culture that didn't just accept losing, it became losing. Here's what most people miss about losing cultures. It's not about talent. I'm going to say that again. It's not about talent. Now look, when you lose 121 games, you clearly don't have enough talent. But the reason it compounds, the reason it goes from a bad season to a dead franchise, is because losing becomes your organizational identity. Players stop believing they can win altogether. And when you stop believing you can win, you stop playing like you can win. Every error, every strikeout, every blown save, it just confirms what you already pre-decided as truth. We're losers. We are losers. That's not a baseball problem, folks. That's a psychology problem. The clinical term is learned helplessness. When you've been beaten down so many times that you stop even trying to change your situation, you just accept it. That was the 2024 White Sox, and that was, honestly, the 2025 White Sox as well. Not a bad team, a broken team. Enter Munetaka Murakami, 25 years old, 246 career home runs in Japan, 647 RBIs, the single-season home run champion of Nippon Professional Baseball, and the White Sox signed him for 2 years, $34 million. Now, let's be honest. When this signing happened, most people kind of shrugged. They're like, the White Sox, I mean, what's he going to do? What's he going to do over there? What's he going to do over in the south side of Chicago? Why would this guy choose the White Sox? He had less than 48 hours before his posting window closed, and there were other suitors as well. But he chose the worst team in baseball history, or at least the worst team in modern baseball history. But here's what matters. It's not just that he chose them, it's what he brought with him. Murakami didn't just bring power. And he brought a lot of power, believe me. That is being put on full display. He is leading the American League in homers right now with 17 home runs. But he brought a completely different relationship with success. In Japanese baseball culture, the team comes before the individual. And you would think that would be the case here in America, and it is for the most part, but it is exemplified in Japanese culture. Every single play matters. The discipline, the routine, the humility. It's not optional. It's baked into how they approach the game from the time they're kids. And I know this because Will Venable, the White Sox manager, wrote his Princeton senior thesis on baseball in America and Japan. His thesis was titled The Game and Community, an anthropological look at baseball in America and Japan. His own father played in Japan. This guy understands Japanese baseball culture at a level that almost no other MLB manager does. And he said it himself. The commitment to the game and their ability and willingness to just give everything to baseball. That's what he saw in Japan, and that's exactly what Murakami walks in the door carrying. I mentioned it already, 17 home runs this season, leading the American League. And the thing that's been talked about right now, it's not just his power. I mean, obviously, that's the big focal point, is the power this guy brings to the table. But around the clubhouse, around the Chicago White Sox clubhouse, they're talking about his humility. They're talking about his work ethic, his team-first mentality. You guys see the pattern there? This isn't a guy who came to Chicago to be the star, to be the superstar, right? He came to change the standard. So what actually happens when one person's identity shifts an entire room? Because here's the thing, folks. We all know baseball is not an individual sport. It's a team sport. It is an individual sport in the context of, your teammates can't go up there and swing the bat for you, right? They can't catch the ball for you. They can't throw the ball for you. But it is a collection of guys. One player is not going to win you a World Series. I mean, if that was the case, Mike Trout would have, 14, 15 World Series already on his mantle. It doesn't work like that. But one impactful leader can completely change the culture of an organization. Look at the numbers. The White Sox right now are 25-23. And I know that doesn't sound that impressive, right? That's not really that impressive of a record. But for the White Sox, it absolutely is. When you realize, again, they won 41 games all of the 2024 season. And in 2025, they did a little bit better, right? But still lost 102 games. So they're already over halfway to where they were last year. And we're not even at the All-Star break yet. They haven't been 500 or better this late in the season since 2022, 4 years ago. And now they're, again, 1.5 games out of first place in the AL Central. They're on pace for what would be the greatest comeback, greatest single season turnaround, whatever you want to call it, in the history of the game. A 40-game improvement, guys. That's not a bump. That's a resurrection. That is a resurgence. And yeah, there's other guys that are absolutely performing. This is not all on Murakami. The pitching's been a lot better. A lot of new young players that the White Sox have called up or brought over are doing, better than expected, right? But you watch this team play, the walk-off wins, the energy in the dugout, the way guys are grinding out at-bats. It's not just better players. That's a different mindset. Here's how culture change actually works, folks. It's not a team meeting. It's not a speech. It's not some rah-rah motivational poster on the wall, putting up the Ted Lasso believe on the top of the entrance to the locker room. And all that stuff helps, right? All that stuff, could be a byproduct to changing your culture. But real culture change happens when one person refuses to lower the bar. And everybody else around them has two choices. Match it or look lazy by comparison. When Murakami shows up early, stays late, never celebrates his own numbers, and treats every at-bat like it's Game 7 of the World Series, that's a standard. And standards are contagious. The scrappier play, the better close game performance, the walk-offs, those aren't X's and O's. Those are symptoms of a changed mindset. One guy, one standard. Sometimes that's all it takes. If you're digging this breakdown, folks, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button. It takes 2 seconds, and it helps the video reach more people who need to hear this stuff. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Because this is where we break down the mental side of winning every single week. So you're missing out. Subscribe now and let's keep that momentum going, folks. All right, so let's shift gears here for a second. This is the part of the video where we talk about some real world leadership application. Because I know a lot of you watching this aren't just baseball fans or baseball players. You're leaders. You're supervisors, you're business owners, you're in the military, you're parents. So let me ask you this. Have you ever walked into a team, a unit, or an organization where the culture was just broken? Like you just walked in the room and you just immediately sensed how just terrible the morale was. You know, people just stopped caring, where showing up and going through the motions became the norm. I've been there. I've lived that. And I'll tell you what I learned. The same exact thing that Murakami is doing right now in Chicago. But here's the key, and this is where most people get it wrong. You don't change a culture by just talking about it. You change it by living it every single day and without compromise. You know, when I've had to take over teams that were underperforming, that had terrible morale, that were just going through the motions, the first thing I did, it wasn't call a meeting. The first thing I did was raise my own standard. I became the person that I wanted to be. I became the change I wanted to see with the organization. I showed up earlier. I worked harder. I held myself accountable publicly. I didn't do it to make a point. I did it because that's what the team needed. And you know what happens? People watch. People are always watching. You are being watched, especially as a leader. You are being watched every single second of the day. And when they see that their leader is not just talking about it, they're actually living it, they got two choices. Again, they can match it or they can stand out in a negative light. And very few people want to be the guy or the girl who's just coasting when the person next to them, when their supervisor or their coworker or their manager is going absolutely all out, is bringing that energy, is bringing that passion, is bringing that customer service, right? Whatever it is. That's what Murakami did and is doing right now for the White Sox. You know, he didn't give some speech. He didn't call a team meeting. He just showed up every single day and treated every single at-bat like it was the most important moment of his life. And slowly, one by one, the guys around him started matching it. Imagine that, man. Imagine that. Again, it's infectious. It's contagious. That's leadership, guys. Real leadership. It's not about having the title. It's not about, having the position. You don't need to be the best player on the team either to do that. That's the biggest misconception is people think that because they are not in a position of leadership, they're not a supervisor, they're not an NCO if we're talking military, right? They think that they can't be a leader. Every single person has the ability to be a leader and to impact the organization in a positive light. Again, you don't need to be the highest paid player. You just need to be the one who refuses to lower the bar. A lot of people these days in organizations, they want to talk about toxic this, toxic that, right? But again, what are you doing to change the culture? Because I don't care how talented you are. I don't care how well you're performing individually. If the standard around you is sinking and you're not doing anything to raise it, you are part of the problem. Be the change, folks. Be the change. So here's the ChampMind Principle. Write this down, tattoo it on your brain. The standard you walk past is the standard you accept. The 2024 White Sox accepted losing. It became their identity. They walked past it every single day for years. The 2026 White Sox have a guy who refuses to walk past anything. Every rep matters, every at-bat matters, every play matters. That's the Japanese baseball philosophy, and it's not just cultural, it's psychological. When you treat everything like it matters, you start to believe it matters. Simple as that. And when you believe it matters, you start performing like it matters. That's the flywheel. One mindset, one standard, One person. And suddenly a dead franchise is alive again. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you guys that the White Sox are going to win the World Series. I'm not even saying that I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think it'd be really cool to see, as somebody that loves to root for the underdog. I mean, I think that's a given, the fact that I'm a New York Mets fan. But let's be real. It's May. There's a lot of baseball left. But the turnaround, the way this team's been performing, that's absolutely real. There is definitely a culture shift in this organization, and the reason's simple. They found someone who wouldn't accept the old standard, and that person infected the entire organization with a new one. The White Sox didn't just need better players, they needed a different identity, and Murakami brought them one. The same thing applies to you, the team you're on, the culture you're in, the standard you hold. Guys, it's not determined by your situation. It's not determined by your environment. It's determined by who you decide to be. One mindset can change everything. It's not a baseball story. That's a champion's truth. So what do you guys think, man? Have you ever been on a team where one person's mindset changed the whole game? Changed the whole culture? I want to hear your story. So drop it in the comments below. But until next time, keep whooping ass, keep changing the game, and let's unleash greatness. Boom!